So what is it that makes someone move to the tiny Caribbean island of Grenada? Most people in the world have not even heard of this island, but I am joined by John Tomlinson, who together with his wife has decided to make the move to Grenada. John, how did you first come across Grenada? Because as I say, a lot of people think it's in Spain. So what's your story? What's your connection to Grenada?
And I appreciate the opportunity to get on and talk about our journey. So for us, Grenada was something that came about years ago when I was coaching high school football in Virginia. I had a young man that I was coaching. His name was Alex Monroe, outstanding athlete, great young man, great family. The mother and father from Grenada. The father was just selling us on the beauty of the island, the beauty of the residents there, and just everything that the island offered. Now, this is Northern Virginia. This is where I was living at the time. This was 2005, 2006. I was keen on it. I'm listening and I'm liking what he says. But at that time, I'm raising 5 kids, my wife and I. I'm working for the government, doing some contract technology work and coaching, in the afternoons. But while he's sharing all of this, I'm asking myself, man, wouldn't that be nice one day? Once our kids left the home, the thought of, the island it always resonated. It came back to me. And we've always done a little research on where it's located. We know about what happened in the 80s, but we did some research on that also and dug deeper into it. So my wife and I, we visited in 2018.
Okay.
And just fell in love with it. And what made it so unique for us is my wife and I stayed with friends of the family that we were associated with in the United States and just had an awesome time. Stayed in Vendham and, lived like the locals. And then towards the end of our trip, we stayed at a resort. I actually missed the local lifestyle. Just the time we spent, it was awesome. They have a son. He took us around and shared with us some different places, and the Spiceland Mall, just everything. I mean, he did an awesome job. And because my wife and I had an empty nest at that point, and seeing the things that we deal with in the United States, we just kind of tickled with the idea, if that's a word I can use. Just, wouldn't it be nice to just do something different? Because the peace of mind in being there was unique. And my wife and I always use this term, the ancestors are speaking to us. I remember when we were there, I remember just bathing in the sea and just thinking about a lot of things. My father passed in 2017. And it was a time for me to just kind of reconnect my thoughts and really what I wanted in life. My wife and I own a company and trying to, bring it to a level of success and growth. I coach now in a professional league. It's like a developmental league for the NFL. We've just continued to throw this idea around. We also visited a couple of years after that during COVID. Unfortunately, we couldn't get around like we wanted to, and that was hard. And I never forget the feeling we both had when we were getting ready to go home. Did not want to leave. I'm looking around at other couples that look just like us, and they all look sad. And, hey, how you guys doing? Oh, we're fine. Why you look so sad? Because I don't want to leave. The second trip was it solidified it for us. But I do believe the first trip was important. It wasn't about the resort. It was about just hearing the crickets at night. Yeah, and I'm talking about things that are more aesthetics, nature, but some of those things are important. That really did it. It was like a 15-year setup between the conversations I had with Gemma and Byron Monroe and their son, and then coming to see it, and it's true. And then comparing it to what I see every day when I go back to the States. So it's a combination of things.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have a dream of living in the Caribbean. And I think maybe for something like the Caribbean is just the Caribbean. The Caribbean is just the Caribbean. Like And I think there's islands like Jamaica or Barbados or St. Lucia that have more of an appeal and maybe more amenities as well. So what was it that made you stick with Grenada? Why didn't you choose to go somewhere like Jamaica that has a bit more of a tech scene, that there's a little more
Yeah.
hassle and get up and go?
Yeah.
What resonated with you in Grenada?
It's a couple of things. One, yeah, I visited Jamaica. Wife and I went there for our honeymoon, and it was nice. Didn't do the research there, but I have done some research in some other places. You know, I think for us, it was one that we've lived in some places in the States that are unique, have their own flavor. And, I've been in the US my entire life. And some things I like about Grenada: one, it's the lowest of the Caribbean chain. So the weather's fairly consistent. I understand you get rain, you get floods, sometimes that structural stuff. Like I know River Road always gets that flooding, but I know they're working on that. I actually see that every day. I keep up with that. The low crime rate. So those things are important. I've been in some cities here in the United States where maybe the crime doesn't necessarily directly become a problem for me, but we all want a certain level of peace of mind and safety. When you lock your doors at night, you're okay. It was like a combination of things. I like the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I do. COVID has taught us a lot of things. One, we can work from home. Some of us. I don't want to disrespect anyone and say that that's possible for everyone. But I do have a technology background. I can't coach from home, but besides that, I can do some things from home. And I've lived in so many places in the United States. I just haven't seen any place as unique as Grenada. When you think about living in an environment, for us, I like the fact that it was a little off the grid, so, the crime rate, the weather, those are factors. Having friends now that live there, that helps. And they're honest. So some of those things help. It's not just, oh, I can break open a coconut every day and do this. And so it's not so much the infatuation of it feeling like a vacation. Some of those other things matter, because when you think about places that you move to, you consider groceries, you consider travel. What about the traffic? Do I have to drive? And you do think about the weather. When we moved to Texas, we wanted to make sure we weren't living in floodplains. In every place we moved, we're thinking about crime. Well, I don't want to be here. I don't want to put my family at risk. So all those things matter. So I took some of those same factors in all the cities that we moved to and planted them into this environment also. And I'm older, so maybe my needs are not as high as they used to be. I'm not responsible for 5 children and making sure their environment is set a certain way. So now what we focus on is how my wife wants to live and the peace that she wants to have. And peace of mind is a higher factor now. And then a place where we can bring our grandkids and they can learn.
Definitely does. I have to drop in here that John watches GBN more regularly than I do. He confesses that he watches it on a nightly basis. So this is why he knows that River Road floods very regularly. Yeah. And John, I don't think I even told you, you are officially my first one-to-one client. I remember I was sitting, where was I? I was at in the restaurant at the aquarium on the beach, and I got an email like, oh wow, someone's actually booked a one-to-one. And this was maybe August last year. And I just love the fact that we've kept in touch. You keep on coming here, doing your research and building connections, and you've even reached out to other people that I've interviewed. And I think you just really exemplify what it is to be like really focused on a goal. And no matter what happens, you just keep on plodding away, doing the work. And yeah, I think that's part of the reason I wanted to share your story, because I just think it's really easy to get distracted. And I know that you've had lots of twists and turns with your business, but Grenada seems to be a constant for you and your wife.
I'm glad you said, I appreciate that. And I do believe for us, I've had to treat this journey the same way I had to treat pursuing and building a business. When it comes to making a life decision like this, you have to do the exact same thing. You have to ask yourself, what am I losing? What am I gaining? Can I afford it? All of those factors constantly in place. And that's why my wife and I do so much research, because we realize it's not just about a feeling, it's about, can this work?
Right.
And
We
when I
sustain
look
it.
at, exactly. And when I look at the life that we live in the States, and I always go back to COVID, how often are we really using all of these resources that are available to us? And can I go somewhere else and create a safe space and a peaceful environment using the resources that they might have? And because I'm not taking kids back and forth to school, I'm not involved in some of those things that I used to be. Yeah, you know what? This could work, because it has some of the factors that are important to my wife and I at this stage in our life.
And tell me how you went about navigating the process of figuring out whether or not Grenade was going to work for you. Obviously, you've had your family friends who did a 2-decade-long marketing campaign that Grenada is great. You came
Yeah.
out, you did your research, and I love the fact that you didn't just stay in a resort, you did stay in a community, so you got a real sense of what Grenada would be like. But how else did you research things, and how different was it from, say, deciding where you might move to next in the States? Because finding information in Grenada can be challenging, or yeah, it's not always clear, I find.
Yeah. So we actually, that's a great question. So we did this two ways, lots of Google searches to find government documentation, right? Like yearly budget, things like that. My wife is a numbers person. So so she's researching, she's on the couch, I'm at the table, and we'll just talk about what's most important, what's the next thing we need to research. And so uh factors about the economy, as I said earlier, the crime, the weather, how often these storms that we all see so too much now, how, where they hit, where they rolling, all those things are factors. Energy bills. I know you only have Grenada, but you don't, like in Texas, you have tons of different energy companies. So they offset each other. So you can't get hit over the head with a high electric bill because they're competitors. But we've looked at all of that. Grocery bills, can I actually get meat from a farmer there? Like, I know a lot of stuff is imported, right? But there are some farmers there that you can get certain things. So what we did is just a lot of Google searches, obviously a ton of YouTube, and then with the resources that we do have on the island, we asked them lots of questions. So and more specific questions depending on where we are in this whole thing. Even freight, mailing stuff, getting stuff, and I've talked to you about that. So the questions now become a lot more detailed because it started. It's almost like I don't want to say a pyramid, but it started at a small point, and then the questions became more detailed. As you said, as if I was moving from Virginia to Dallas, and so that a lot of it comes, not all of it, but some of it comes from online, and then the rest of it just comes from this community and this network we built. And our original friends are awesome because their family lives in Grenada, so they always provide information. I mean, from real estate to best places to live. So yeah, we still use those resources.
So I would love to know, like, how did your experience of coming to Grenada affect the plans? Because I think quite often you can have an idea on paper, but then the reality, you're like, oh, maybe we need to go here or there. So how did that process of actually being here help you to refine exactly what you needed to do?
You know what? I actually think that sped up our process. Obviously, we're going to go to Grenada early in the year and stay for almost 2 months to give us more time to solidify the decisions we already believe that we're going to make. But what we try to do is, since we're kind of like nomads here, because we have traveled a little bit. I mean, we were living in Dallas, moved to St. Louis and took a grant to run our company. And then my wife recently took an opportunity in New Orleans. And then we're going from there to Grenada. We were in Birmingham in the summertime, going back and forth to St. Louis to run the business. So we moved around quite a bit. And so all we did was just take that model and say, can this work? I mean, because I know when I work and I can pretty much be flexible and live anywhere. And when we came to the conclusion, you know what? My season doesn't start until March. Let's go here and let's make a trial run of this. That's what sped up the process for us, because we realized we can make this work, because we're not really tied to a place. Now, everyone doesn't have that option. However, for those who do work remotely, it's doable. I mean, because we have looked at a lot at places to stay. They're pretty much not any different than the States. Some places are a lot more, much more affordable. It just depends on what your budget is. Like if you want to do an apartment, I think sometimes starting small and then just putting money away and just getting a feel for the environment is not a bad way to do it. So for us, it's because we have this lifestyle that allows us some flexibility. It makes it a little bit more realistic. And, you know, I remember this conversation we both had, and it was when we were doing our calls with the other folks that were thinking about moving to the island. We just sat and talked one day, and we just said, you know what, let's just go beginning of the year and, you know, trial run it until I have to report. Mm-hmm. And she was all in, because we have we put ourselves in a position that we can do that. But it takes time. And it does come from research. It does come from what's your current living situation like. So sometimes I like to give the analogy that we got small so we can be in a bigger space over time. You know, just be compact and be available. And I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love is that with the online chats that we started doing, when was it, back in May? And we're talking about starting them again. For some reason, everyone seems to be here in December, January. So for sure, we're going to have to do some face-to-face meetings and get off Zoom and actually sit around a campfire and have an oil down and drink some carom and all the rest. Make it really authentic.
Love that. And I think my wife has made oil down probably twice.
Oh, wow.
In the last 2 months. Yep. And that's, once again, we have resources. You can look at YouTube, that's fine, but you always talk to somebody, it's always something different about their recipe. So we have just, you know, embraced a lot of that. But let me tell you, like food, where you shop, all of that, everything is factored in.
Also, when we do our chats, is that you guys are sharing information with each other. Someone will be like, okay, this is my experience on the best bank, and you can give your perspectives on different places to buy property. So it really is just kind of merging into this. Yeah, it's a movement of its own, which is really, really exciting. But before we wrap for this session, I would love to know, what is it that makes you happiest about being in Grenada? What are like your top 3 things that you just makes you feel like, yeah, this is the place for me?
My wife is going to laugh when she sees this video. You know, for me, one of those top 3 things, and I don't know if I can put them in order, but it's the crickets at night. Oh. They don't sound like the crickets where I live, but I love the nature, the peace, and watching the sunrise. I'm an early bird. And I'm very regimented, and maybe because I'm a coach, you know, I'm going to work out and I'm going to go for a walk. And in New Orleans, they have canals, and you see the storks, the cranes, all types of birds. You see it, and I look at them like, man, I'm looking forward to enjoying that in Grenada. So I definitely would say the nature is one of those things, and the you know, everything from the crickets to the breeze that blows through. And I love the people that I've met, just beautiful people. So I would definitely say the people I've met there. And because I have a business and I deal with software, I meet a lot of young people. And I've actually interviewed people just indirectly from the time that I was at the resort to the airport to the young man that took us around the island and just asking what are some of the things that you all need here to help make this economy better, specifically in technology. And so, you know, I built some good relationships with some young people that they really pour their heart out. And then I would say the last thing, and this is the thing that I don't have to go very far because my wife does an awesome job. I'm looking forward to the food, the local food. So, you know, maybe those are my three. You know, nature. You know, I love those crickets at night. The quietness, the people, and the food. Which, you know, my wife might have, some of hers may match mine. It's going to come close.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say it's those things. It's just the environment is just, it's slowed down, and I like that.
Definitely. Now, it's definitely a place where you learn how to be really happy with simple pleasures, because those simple pleasures are so rich. The nature is so beautiful. The people are so authentic. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's just really exciting to share your journey, get people ready to the fact that you are going to be on the island and you and your wife are going to be making a really exciting impact. And we will follow up on what you have planned in the tech space. But I'll make sure to put your details below so that if folks want to reach out to you any way they can. But yeah, really appreciate everything that you're planning to do for Grenada. Appreciate you having you as part of the circle and look forward to carrying on the conversation.